Hare Krishna, my dear devotees. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the Haven, which is located in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just a stone's throw from the English Channel. And we have an honored guest. Our Sankirtan devotees from London have gone back to London, but our landlord has stayed here to oversee us to make sure we're okay. Prince of Hythe, Radharaman. And we hope that all of you out there are healthy and safe and as happy as you can be in this world right now. But this is the way to stay happy in this world right now, to hear the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam every day in the assembly of devotees who like to hear it. Next to chanting the holy name of the Lord without offense, this is the most important aspect of devotional service. Okay, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Mahima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami explains what I just said better than I can. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhāgavata Pṛthu, Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho, Kali Dvandotitaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahādana Mandishtadaka Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin atini chochata kada hanamunchakadachin mam premna rit kanta yokspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we've reached the 23rd chapter of the 4th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Pṛthu Mahārāja has gone to the forest and followed the Vanaprastha life perfectly in extreme austerity, and he went back to Godhead. And now his saintly wife is doing the needful. Beginning with text 22. After this, the queen executed the necessary funerary functions and offered oblations of water. After bathing in the river, she offered obeisances to various demigods situated in the sky in the different planetary systems. She then circumambulated the fire, and while thinking of the lotus feet of her husband, entered its flames. Purport. The entrance of a chaste wife into the flames of the pyre of her dead husband is known as sahagamana, which means dying with the husband. This system of sahagamana had been practiced in Vedic civilization from time immemorial. Even after the British period in India, this practice was rigidly observed, but soon it degraded to the point that even when the wife was not strong enough to enter the fire of her dead husband, the relatives would force her to enter. Thus, this practice had to be stopped. And even today, there are still some solitary cases where a wife will voluntarily enter the fire and die with her husband. Even after 1940, we personally knew of a chaste wife who died in this way. Text 23. After observing this brave act performed by the chaste wife Archi, the wife of the great King Pṛthu, many thousands of the wives of the demigods, along with their husbands, offered prayers to the queen, for they were very much satisfied. Text 24. At that time, the demigods were situated on top of Mandara hill, and all their wives began to shower flowers on the funeral pyre and began to talk amongst themselves as follows. Text 25. The wives of the demigods said, "All glories to Queen Archi. We can see that this queen of the great King Pṛthu, the emperor of all the kings of the world, has served her husband with mind, speech, and body, exactly as the goddess of fortune serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yagyesha, or Vishnu." Purport. In this verse, the words Yagyesham Shrir Vadur, Eva, indicate that Queen Archi served her husband just as the goddess of fortune serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. We can observe that even in the history of this world, when Lord Krishna, the Supreme Vishnu, was ruling over Dwarka, Queen Rukmini, who was the chief of all Krishna's queens, used to serve Lord Krishna personally, in spite of having many hundreds of maidservants to assist her. Similarly, the goddess of fortune in the Vaikuntha planets also serves Narayana personally, although there are many thousands of devotees prepared to serve the Lord. This practice is also followed by the wives of the demigods, and in days past, the wives of men also followed this same principle. In Vedic civilization, the husband and wife were not separated by such man-made laws as divorce. We should understand the necessity for maintaining family life in human society, and should thus abolish this artificial law known as divorce. The husband and wife should live in Krishna consciousness and follow in the footsteps of Lakshmi Narayana, or Krishna Rukmini. In this way, the harmony can be possible. In this way, peace and harmony can be possible within this world. Text 26. The wives of the demigods continued, "Just see how this chaste lady, Archi, by dint of her inconceivable pious activities, is still following her husband upward as far as we can see." Purport. Both Pṛthu Mahārāja's airplane and the airplane carrying Queen Archi were passing out of the vision of the ladies of the higher planetary systems. These ladies were simply astonished to see how Pṛthu Mahārāja and his wife achieved such an exalted position. Although they were the wives of the denizens of the higher planetary system, and Pṛthu Mahārāja was the inhabitant of an inferior planetary system, the earth, the king, along with his wife, passed beyond the realms of the demigods and went upward to Vaikuntha Loka. The word urdhvam, upward is significant here, for the ladies speaking were from the higher planetary systems, which include the moon, sun, and Venus, up to Brahmaloka, or the highest planet. Beyond Brahmaloka is the spiritual sky, and in that spiritual sky there are innumerable Vaikuntha lokas. Thus the word Urdhvam indicates that the Vaikuntha planets are beyond or above these material planets, and it was to these Vaikuntha planets that Pṛthu Mahārāja and his wife were going. This also indicates that when Pṛthu Mahārāja and his wife Archie abandoned their material bodies in the material fire, they immediately developed their spiritual bodies and entered into spiritual airplanes, which could penetrate the material elements and reach the spiritual sky. Since they were carried by two separate airplanes, it may be concluded that even after being burned in the funeral pyre, they remained separate, individual persons. In other words, they never lost their identity or became void, as imagined by the impersonalists. The ladies in the higher planetary systems were capable of seeing both downward and upward. When they looked down, they could see that the body of Pṛthu Mahārāja was being burned and that his wife Archie was entering into the fire. And when they looked upward, they could see how they were being carried in two airplanes to the Vaikuntha lokas. All of this was possible simply by durvibhavyena karmana, inconceivable activity. Pṛthu Mahārāja was a pure devotee, and his wife, Queen Archie, simply followed her husband. Thus they can both be considered pure devotees, and thus they are capable of performing inconceivable activities. Such activities are not possible for ordinary men. Indeed, ordinary men cannot even take to the devotional service of the Lord, nor can ordinary women maintain such vows of chastity and follow their husbands in all respects. A woman does not need to attain high qualifications, but if she simply follows in the footsteps of her husband, who must be a devotee, then both husband and wife attain liberation and are promoted to the Vaikuntha lokas. This is evinced by the inconceivable activities of Mahārāja Pṛthu and his wife. Text 27. In this material world, every human being has a short span of life, but those who are engaged in devotional service go back home, back to Godhead, for they are actually on the path of liberation. For such persons, there is nothing which is not available. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 9:33, Lord Krishna says, Anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. The Lord here declares that this material world is full of miseries, asukam, and at the same time is very flickering, anityam. Therefore, one's only duty is to engage himself in devotional service. This is the best end to which human life can be put. Those devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord achieve not only all material benefits, but also all spiritual benefits. For at the end of life, they go back home, back to Godhead. Their destination is described in this verse as Bhagavat Padam. The word Padam means abode, and Bhagavat means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the destination of the devotees is the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, the word Naishkarmyam, which means transcendental knowledge is also significant. Unless one comes to the platform of transcendental knowledge and offers devotional service to the Lord, one is not perfect. Generally, the processes of jnana, yoga, and karma are executed life after life before one gets a chance to render pure devotional service to the Lord. This chance is given by the grace of a pure devotee, and it is in this way only that one can actually attain liberation. In the context of this narration, the wives of the demigods repented because although they had the opportunity of such a birth in a higher planetary system, a lifetime spanning millions of years, and all material comforts, they were not as fortunate as Pṛthu Mahārāja and his wife, who were actually surpassing them. In other words, Pṛthu Mahārāja and his wife scorned promotion to the higher planetary systems and even to Brahmaloka because the position which they were attaining was incomparable. In Bhagavad Gita 8:16, the Lord affirms, Abrahma bhuvanaloka punar avartanorjuna. From the highest planet in the material world to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. In other words, even if one goes to the highest planet, Brahmaloka, he has to return to the miseries of birth and death. In the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 9:21, Lord Krishna also asserts, Te tam bhuktva swarkalokam vishalam chine punye martyalokam vishanti. When they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, after exhausting the results of pious activities, one has to come again to the lower planetary systems and begin a new chapter of pious activities. It is therefore said in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.5.12, Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam. The path of liberation is not at all secure unless one attains the devotional service of the Lord. Even if one is promoted to the impersonal Brahmajyoti, he runs every chance of falling down into this material world. If it is possible to fall down from the Brahmajyoti, which is beyond the higher planetary systems in this material world, then what can be said of the ordinary yogis and karmis who can only be elevated to the higher material planets? Thus the wives of the denizens of the higher planetary systems did not very much appreciate the results of karma, jnana, and yoga. Text 28. Any person who engages himself within this material world in performing activities that necessitate great struggle, and who, after obtaining a human form of life, which is a chance to attain liberation from miseries, undertakes the difficult tasks of fruitive activities, must be considered to be cheated and envious of his own self. Purport. That's it. That's it. In this material world, people are engaged in different activities. I think I'll repeat this last verse. It's so important. Any person who engages himself within this material world in performing activities that necessitate great struggle, and who, after obtaining a human form of life, which is a chance to attain liberation from miseries, undertakes the difficult tasks of fruitive activities, must be considered to be cheated and envious of his own self. Purport. In this material world, people are engaged in different activities simply to achieve a little success in sense gratification. The karmis are engaged in performing very difficult activities, and thus they open gigantic factories, build huge cities, and make big scientific discoveries, and so on. In other words, they are engaged in performing very costly sacrifices in order to be promoted to the higher planetary systems. Similarly, yogis who are engaged in achieving a similar goal by accepting the tedious practices of mystic yoga. Similarly, yogis are engaged in achieving a similar goal by accepting the tedious practices of mystic yoga. Jnanis are engaged in philosophical speculation in order to gain release from the clutches of material nature. In these ways, everyone is engaged in performing very difficult tasks simply for the gratification of the senses. All of these are considered to be engaged in sense gratificatory activities, or vishaya, because they all demand some facility for material existence. Actually, the results of such activities are temporary, as Krishna himself proclaims in Bhagavad Gita 7:23, Antavat tupalang te sham. The fruits of those who worship the demigods are limited and temporary. Thus, the fruits of the activities of the yogis, karmis, and jnanis are ephemeral. Moreover, Krishna says, Tad bhavat yalpamedasam. They are simply meant for men of small intelligence. The word vishaya denotes sense gratification. The karmis flatly state that they want sense gratification. The yogis also want sense gratification, but they want it to a higher degree. It is their desire to show some miraculous results through the practice of yoga. Thus they strive very hard to achieve success in becoming smaller than the smallest, or greater than the greatest, or in creating a planet like Earth, or as scientists by inventing so many wonderful machines. Similarly, the jnanis are also engaged in sense gratification, for they are simply interested in becoming one with the Supreme. Thus, the aim of all these activities is sense gratification to a higher or lower degree. The bhaktas, however, are not interested in sense gratificatory practices. They are simply satisfied to get an opportunity to serve the Lord. Although they are satisfied in any condition, there is nothing they cannot obtain, because they are purely engaged in the service of the Lord. The wives of the demigods condemn the performers of sense gratificatory activities as vanchita, cheated. Those so engaged are actually killing themselves, atmaha, as stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 11:20-17. Nrideham adyam supalam sudurlabam plavam sukalpam gurukarnadaram mayanukulena nabasvateritam puman bhavadabim nataret sa'atmaha. When one wants to cross a large ocean, he requires a strong boat. It is said that this human form of life is a good boat by which one can cross the ocean of nations. In the human form of life, one can obtain the guidance of a good navigator, spiritual master. One also gets a favorable wind by the mercy of Krishna, and that wind is the instructions of Krishna. The human body is the boat. The instructions of Lord Krishna are the favorable winds, and the spiritual master is the navigator. The spiritual master knows well how to adjust the sails to catch the winds favorably and steer the boat to its destination. If, however, one does not take advantage of this opportunity, one wastes the human form of life. Wasting time and life in this way is the same as committing suicide. The word labdva padagyam, labdva pavagyam, is significant in this verse, because according to Jiva Goswami, apavagyam, or the path of liberation, does not refer to merging into the impersonal Brahman, but to salokyadi siddhi, which means attaining the very planet where the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides. There are 5 kinds of liberation, and one is called Sayuja Mukti, or merging into the existence of the Supreme, or the impersonal Brahman effulgence. However, since there is a chance of one's falling down again into the material sky from the Brahman effulgence, Srila Jiva Goswami advises that in this human form of life, one's only aim should be to go back home, back to Godhead. The words savanchita indicate that once a person has obtained the human form of life, he is actually cheated if he does not make preparations to go back home, back to Godhead. The position of all non-devotees who are not interested in going back home, back to God, going back to Godhead, is very much lamentable, for the human form of life is meant for executing devotional service and nothing else. Text 29. The great sage Maitreya continued speaking. My dear Vidura, when the wives of the denizens of heaven were thus talking amongst themselves, Queen Archie reached the planet which her husband, Mahārāja Pṛthu, the topmost self-realized soul, had attained. Purport. According to the Vedic scriptures, a woman who dies with her husband or enters into the fire in which her husband is burning also enters the same planet her husband attains. In this material world, there is a planet known as Patiloka, just as there is a planet known as Pitriloka. But in this verse, the word Patiloka does not refer to any planet within this material universe. For Pṛthu Mahārāja, being topmost amongst self-realized souls, certainly returned home, back to Godhead, and attained one of the Vaikuntha planets. Queen Archie also entered Patiloka, but this planet is not in the material universe, for she actually entered the planet which her husband attained. In the material world also, when a woman dies with her husband, she again unites with him in the next birth. Similarly, Mahārāja Pṛthu and Queen Archie united in the Vaikuntha planets. In the Vaikuntha planets, there are husbands and wives, but there is no question of their giving birth to children or having sex, life. In the Vaikuntha planets, both husbands and wives are extraordinarily beautiful, and they are attracted to one another, but they do not enjoy sex life. Indeed, they consider sex not to be very relishable, because both husband and wife are always absorbed in Krishna consciousness and in glorifying and chanting the glories of the Lord. According to Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, a husband and wife can turn the home into a place as good as Vaikuntha, even while in this material world. Being absorbed in Krishna consciousness, even in this world, husband and wife can live in Vaikuntha simply by installing the deity of the Lord within the home and serving the deity according to the directions of Shastras. In this way, they will never feel the sex urge. That is the test of advancement in devotional service. one who is advanced in devotional service is never attracted by sex life. And as soon as one becomes detached from sex life and proportionately attached to the service of your Lord, he actually experiences living in the Vaikuntha planets. In the ultimate issue, there is actually no material world. But when one forgets the service of the Lord and engages himself in the service of his senses, he is said to be living in the material world. Text 30. Maitreya continued, the greatest of all devotees, Mahārāja Pṛthu, was very powerful, and his character was liberal, magnificent, and magnanimous. Thus I have described him to you as far as possible. Purport. In this verse, the word Bhagavatatama is very significant, for the word Bhagavat is used especially to refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the word Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is derived from the word Bhagavat. Sometimes, however, we see that the word Bhagavan is used for great personalities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Narada Muni. This is the case with Pṛthu Mahārāja, who is described here as the best of the Bhagavans, or the best of the Lords. A person can be so addressed only if he is a great personality who exhibits extraordinary and uncommon features, or who attains the greatest goal after his disappearance, or who knows the difference between knowledge and ignorance. In other words, the word Bhagavan should not be used for ordinary persons. Text 31. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Pṛthu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet which Mahārāja Pṛthu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planets, back to Godhead. Purport. In the execution of devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, especially stressed. This means that bhakti, or devotional service, begins by hearing and chanting about Vishnu. When we speak of Vishnu, we also refer to that which relates to Vishnu. In the Padma Purāṇa, Lord Shiva recommends Vishnu worship to be the topmost worship, and better than Vishnu worship is worship of the Vaishnava, or anything that is related to Vishnu. The fact is explained herein that hearing and chanting about a Vaishnava is as good as hearing and chanting about Vishnu. For Maitreya has explained that anyone who hears about Pṛthu Mahārāja with attention also attains the planet which Mahārāja Pṛthu attained. There is no duality between Vishnu and the Vaishnava, and this is called Advaya Gyan. A Vaishnava is as important as Vishnu, and therefore Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote in his Gurvashtika, Sakshad Dari Tvainasa Masta Shastrayir Uktastata Bhavyata Eva Sadbihi Kintu Prabhor Yak Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanadavindam. The spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of your Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and is followed by all authorities. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who was a bona fide representative of Sri Hari. The Supreme Vaishnava is the spiritual master, and he is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said that sometimes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to chant the names of the gopis. Some of the Lord's students tried to advise him to chant the name of Krishna instead, but upon hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very angry with his students. The controversy on this subject reached a point that after this incident, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas because he was not taken very seriously in his grihastha ashram. The point is that since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted the names of the gopis, worship of the gopis or the devotees of the Lord is as good as devotional service rendered directly to the Lord. It is also stated by the Lord himself that devotional service to his devotees is better than service offered directly to him. Sometimes the Sahaja class of devotees are interested only in Krishna's personal pastimes to the exclusion of the activities of the devotees. This type of devotee is not on a very high level. One who sees the devotee and the Lord on the same level has further progressed. Text 32. If one hears of the characteristics of Pṛthu Mahārāja and as a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he is a Kshatriya, he becomes a king of the world. If he is a Vaishya, he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he is a Shudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. Nice. Purport. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is recommended that one should become a devotee regardless of one's condition. Whether one is without desire, akama, or with desire, sakama, or whether one desires liberation, mokshakama, he is advised to worship the Supreme Lord and execute devotional service unto him. By so doing, one attains all perfection in any field of life. The process of devotional service, especially hearing and chanting, is so powerful that it can bring a person to the perfectional stage. In this verse, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are mentioned, but here it should be understood that reference is to the Brahmana who was born in a Brahminical family, the Kshatriya who was born in a Kshatriya family, the Vaishya who was born in a Vaishya family, and the Shudra in a Shudra family. But whether one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, he can attain perfection simply by hearing and chanting. To take birth in a family of Brahmanas is not the ultimate finishing touch. One must have the power of a Brahmana, which is called Brahmatejas. Similarly, taking birth in a royal family is not the all-in-all. One must possess the power to rule the world. Similarly, taking birth as a Vaishya is not all. One must possess hundreds of thousands of animals, specifically cows, and rule over other Vaishyas, as Nanda Mahārāja did in Vrindavan. Nanda Mahārāja was a Vaishya who possessed 900,000 cows and ruled over many cowherd men and boys. A person who is born in a Shudra family can become greater than a Brahmana simply by accepting devotional service and giving oral reception to the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What a wonderful reading. Wonderful purports. Okay, we'll stop our reading now. It's past 7:45. And we'll start tomorrow at text 33. In the meantime, we will wait patiently for the reflections of the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
First is from Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Yes, Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, dear Mahārāja,
The
and
most loyal hearer. She's there every single night. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear Mahārāja, and all assembled sages. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Your daily reading service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Your daily reading service, dear Mahārāja. Jai Ho.
Jai Ho. Thank you for your appreciation. Very encouraging.
This is from Anandamurti.
Yes, Anandamurti.
Dear Guru Mahārāja and all assembled devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to His divine grace.
Thank you so much for daily nectar. Quote, the spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and is followed by all authorities. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari. Unquote. Every day this reading of Srila Prabhupada's books rescues me from the material ocean. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your fine example of being a pure devotee in your situation.
Bhakti-Rupa.
Yes, Bhakti-Rupa.
Thanks for reading, Mahārāj. We heard about the power of hearing about devotees. Really makes me want to start reading Lilamrita again. Hare Krishna.
You mean Prabhupada Lilamrita? You must mean. Yes, Abhay and I are experiencing at first hand the nectar of hearing about Srila Prabhupada's perseverance, tolerance, and every other good quality you can imagine. His enthusiasm for spreading Krishna consciousness and for the order, to follow the order of his spiritual master under any conditions.
This is from Subra.
Yes.
He says, Hare Krishna Mahārāj, please accept my humble obeisances. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, Subharam.
One of the best gems is from 423.32. Quote, if one hears of the characteristics of Pṛthu Mahārāj and is a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he is a Kshatriya, he becomes a king of the world. If he is a Vaishya, he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he is a Shudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. Thank you, Mahārāj, for your readings, so we could hear and advance in devotional service.
Thank you for your constant and profound selection of the gems that are found in Prabhupada's purports.
This is from Bhakti Nikki.
Yes, Bhakti Nikki.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you for reading this evening.
Mm.
Today the following jumped out at me.
Mm.
We are always pursuing sense gratification, but these activities are killing the soul.
Mm.
Archie walked into the fire, and to our material intelligence it seems like she was killing herself, but actually she was attaining liberation. Just help me realize how everything is flipped upside down when we identify with the body and the false ego. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
This is from Bhakti Peter.
Yes, Bhakti Peter.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the assembled sages. Text 28 states that any person who undertakes difficult tasks of fruitive activities must be considered to be cheated and envious of his own self. I don't quite understand the last part of this sentence. Can you explain what it means to be envious of oneself? Thank you for your daily inspiration.
Hare Krishna. Well, when you think that you're the body or the mind, then you put yourself in competition with yourself. And in order to carry out your material and mental desires, it means you must reject the soul. And that means you're actually envious of your own soul. Hare Krishna. So, what is the solution? To give up envy. To give up envy, to stop feeling bad when someone does good, including yourself. And stop feeling good when somebody does bad, including yourself. That's the first step. Hare Krishna.
This is from Karuna Purna Devi Dasi. Thank you, Maharaj, for these evening readings.
Hare Krishna, Karuna Purna Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna.
They bring us back to reality after a day of distractions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Said Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna to you.
And this is from Daitari Hari.
Yes, Daityari Hari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to His divine grace. Hare Krishna.
Just noting the purport to text 30. Quote, in this verse the word Bhāgavata Maha is very significant, for the word Bhagavat is used especially to refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the word Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is derived from the word Bhagavat. Sometimes, however, we see that the word Bhagavan is used for great personalities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Narada Muni. This is the case with Pṛthu Mahārāja, who is described here as the best of the Bhagavans, or the best of the Lords. A person can be so addressed only if he is a great personality who exhibits extraordinary and uncommon features, or who attains the greatest goal after his disappearance, or who knows the difference between knowledge and ignorance.
Yes.
In other words, the word Bhagavan should not be used for ordinary persons.
Yes.
Unquote. We understand that Pṛthu Mahārāja was Jiva Tattva and a Shakti-Avesh avatar. But it's interesting that he acts almost exactly as if he's directly Vishnu himself. And we even heard earlier on the narration of Pṛthu's appearance that he even had all the insignia of Vishnu on his feet. Compared to any other Shakti-Avesh avatars I've heard of, Pṛthu Mahārāja seems to resemble the characteristics of Vishnu.
Yes, he was especially empowered. Actually, a Shakti-Avesh avatar is a person who is a Jiva soul, not Vishnu Tattva, not a direct expansion of Krishna or Vishnu, but a Jiva soul who is empowered by Vishnu to do something specific that only Krishna could do, that no one else could do. That's the definition of Shakti-Avesh avatar. So Pṛthu Mahārāja, came into the world in a very difficult situation, and only an empowered devotee could do what he did to get the earth to produce so that people could eat, and to protect the citizens without discrimination and without discrimination of species. So yes, no one else has been able to do that. Sometimes empowered people come. Our Srila Prabhupada did something that no one except Krishna could do. He spread the Krishna consciousness movement alone in the Western world, which no one had ever done before, and no one will ever do it again. It's a one-off thing, and Prabhupada did it. If you want to fully appreciate just how empowered he was, then you just read, the Prabhupada Lilamrita very carefully, especially the first 2 volumes, Lifetime in Preparation and Planting the Seed. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
This is from Gauranga Gopal.
Yes, Gauranga Gopal. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila
All glories to
Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada.
Last month has been a little busy here in Wales as some of the team was traveling in India.
Oh yes.
And we had to cover for their services.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, I haven't been able to attend the live readings, but kept catching up the next day.
Well, we've missed you, I must say.
I am glad to be back churning the nectar of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam with all the devotees,
Yes.
which I missed very much.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And thank you for coming back. Thank you. Some of the most meaningful and inspiring reflections come from the Welsh devotees who are going out and distributing Prabhupada's books. That brings us to exactly 8 o'clock. So I'd like to thank everyone for their encouragement. I feel very encouraged by your appreciation and comments. And I promise to, as long as I physically can, to continue to do this daily readings, and particularly to finish this reading of the Bhagavatam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic. What happened after Pṛthu Mahārāja? Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.